You have entered the Chronics rabbit hole, an army. Chronic kids, welcome to or welcome back to the channel. My name is Kyle, aka Chronic.
And I'm Alana, aka Thumbnail Lady.
And though we mentioned Army and Chronicins, we are here for Suga right now. You guys decided on the poll that you wanted us to dive all the way into him, which I think we have done pretty good justice to. We have a few more videos for the Suga time with us, and that's why we're about to do the explanation videos for Amygdala, Daechwita, and Haegeum, and you let us know exactly which ones to do. So thank you for all the comments. We are doing the bookish theory for Amygdala. We are doing the DKDKTV for the Daechwita, and then we're going back to bookish theories for the Haegeum. And because my lovely soon-to-be wife likes things in order, and we know the prequel actually was Amygdala, we're starting with Amygdala for the explanation, and then doing Daechwita and Haegeum after. So we hope you all are excited to check this out, and we thank you so much for the support.
Thank you so much, Army and Chronicans, for being here with us. I know that this is supposed to be done in the order that is the second song, Daechwita first, followed by Haegeum, followed by Amygdala, which is how we reacted to them for our first time reactions. But I wanted to see the story told from beginning to end, all the way through. I can't even watch Star Wars with the third one first. So here we are with Amygdala, and I can't wait to get into this one.
I'm very excited to do it this way too, because we just reacted to Amygdala, so it's fresh in our mind. So why not? Let's check out the explanation for it too right away.
Absolutely.
Hello and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about August's Amygdala, focusing on a little breakdown of the lyrics and the music video to see what they can tell us about the meaning behind this song.
Cool.
Now, given the subject matter of this track, please be aware that this video might contain sensitive topics that could be triggering to some of you, so moving forward, please proceed with caution. Amygdala is a song written by Jung himself that expresses his desire to erase the painful memories of the past, while also recognizing that this past is ultimately impossible to change. The title of the song refers to the almond-shaped part of the brain in charge of processing memory, decision-making, and emotional responses such as fear, anxiety, and anger. As he explained himself in the Road to D-Day documentary, the amygdala is the part of your brain that helps a person to survive. Since it stores the memory of painful experiences, in case something similar happens again, it triggers a strong emotional response that is meant to protect you from it. This form of protection, however, can also be disrupted by traumatic events, and in many respects, the song deals with Jung's struggle in dealing with these strong emotions. As we'll see in a second, Amygdala is a very personal song that talks about sensitive topics about himself and his family. By his own admission, the process of writing this song was a very difficult one, but as tough as it was also an important step towards healing. Bringing up bad memories can be painful, but it also helps you learn from the very experiences that hurt you. Even if everyone copes with trauma in different ways, when it comes to Jung at least, his way of coping with pain is to face it through music. In his line about it too, for instance, Jung actually mentioned a book by Ron Marasco titled About Grief. In this book, the author actually explained that one way to cope with grief is to go in a place you've never been, write down the things that make you struggle, and then throw the paper away as a way to free yourself from the pain holding you back. In the live, Jung explained,
I love that. I used to do a similar thing all through growing up. I'd go into the forest, write down the things that come to me in that moment.
Cool.
And then you burn it.
Right.
And that was what I had. I've never read that book, but it's a similar thing that was brought up through therapy as well.
To help you get through grief.
To help you get through grief was to burn it, and then you have to sit and watch as all the ashes float away to make sure that you've actually released it.
To know it got dealt with too.
And that it got dealt with.
Yeah, because I think the coolest thing that Jungi's trying to say here, it's like you can't change your past, so you're going to have these scars, and I think that's why that scar is on his face, which can sometimes be self-inflicted even sometimes, but you also want to bring it out because you want to address it.
Absolutely.
So that's also the act of choosing to address it and to speak it into existence is part of the healing process. And I know a lot of you said you love Jungi Suga's music because it is like musical therapy.
It sure is. Every time I hear a song from him, it really hits home for me, which is what always keeps drawing me back to him as well.
Yeah, this is a very good well done explanation video. So I can see why you guys picked this one.
The paper away as a way to free yourself from the pain holding you back. In the live, Jung explained that his way of doing that is making music. He puts his pain in a song, then he releases it, and that release has the same comforting effect of throwing the paper away. Amygdala is a great example of this, because even if confronting his pain is very difficult, it's also a process that teaches him how to cope with it. As he anticipated in the documentary, for instance, Amygdala finally explains why the characters from Daechwita in Haegeum have a scar on their eye. This scar represents the trauma and pain that he endured throughout his life, and even if in the video we see that it's self-inflicted, this action has a symbolic meaning in its own right. You see, according to Jung, all wounds and scars are made by the individual, not because we are to blame for our own trauma, but rather because we fail to learn and listen to the amygdala. As he said himself, you can't really avoid the first arrow, and even in the song he's coping with things that are out of his control. He opens up about the accident he had as a delivery driver, his mother's heart problems, his father's liver cancer, and these are all things that were impossible to predict and therefore impossible to avoid. The scare that he gives himself, however, is not really due to the events themselves, but rather to the painful way he chose to deal with them. Yes, you can't avoid the first arrow, but when the second one comes, some people just allow themselves to get hit, and this is what the song is actually about. In both the lyrics and the music video, Jung is quite literally trapped in his own amygdala. He is trapped in his traumatic memories because he is repressing them, and until he does so, he cannot learn from them, thus giving himself a wound every time that his brain forces him to confront them.
If there's a memory that you have that's a year and a half or older that causes you complete distress and you can't bring it up, you haven't actually gained what you needed to learn from that moment, and that's kind of what he is addressing here too, and that's what your amygdala is trying to teach you in those traumatic moments of what you were supposed to learn in it. We just lost a channel and got it back, and if I didn't admit what I did wrong, I maybe could have it happen to me again, and I could be embarrassed by this scar, but I had to address it. I had to let people know I need help. Let's make sure we get this back, and I don't care if I'm going to get a couple of jokes about what I did wrong and I have a scar on me now. We got the channel back. We're alive.
Absolutely.
We chose to move forward, and that's...
The moment didn't kill us.
It didn't kill us, and we remember an amygdala. You have to come and save yourself in those moments, and that's the confronting door moment where he doesn't open it and they both kind of sit there, right? So and it's what a good song.
Great song.
From them, thus giving himself a wound every time that his brain forces him to confront them. At the beginning, for instance, the video opens with Jung sleeping in a dark place. That's his own mind, his own amygdala, but as his memory brings him back to the day of his accident, the song opens by repeating the phrase, "I don't know your name." Right from the beginning, we get the sense that in his subconscious, Jung doesn't really recognize himself in his own trauma. As he travels through the memories of things he wants to erase, he's repressing his participation in these events. And this is exactly why he cannot move on. The more he wants to erase these memories, the more they show up, the more he wants to be saved from them, and the more he gets trapped. This is because instead of accepting that these things happened and try to learn from these experiences, he would like to change them, even knowing that the past is impossible to change. He's haunted by events that he doesn't even remember, like his mother's heart surgery the month he was born, or by events that he couldn't prevent, like the news of his father's cancer while he was at work. These are all things that he can never change, and yet he approaches these memories trying to find a solution that doesn't exist. In the lyrics, for instance, Jung says that he wants to unpack these memories one by one, not to confront them, but rather to see if he could have done something in order to fix them. Throughout the song, he consistently tries to understand if he made the best choice, or the second best, or the third best. But the more he goes down this rabbit hole, the more these memories destroy him. He forces himself to relive those moments again and again.
Should I have broke,
splits and becomes more fragmented.
What would have been the best thing to do in that
life drowns the pain by downing pills. In an interesting visual, we see that the medicine that he is ingesting here actually turns into almonds, and this is a scene that can actually be interpreted in different ways. Since the word amygdala means almond, the fruit in his hand might represent a correlation between the memories stored in the almonds of his brain and him medicating. In the video, it's implied that he's taking the pills to cope, but the reason why he has to cope is because he has memories in the amygdala he cannot move on from, so the almonds might represent this association.
I think it
On the other
does.
hand, however, the almonds might also be a reference to the book Almond by Song Won-pyong, which is a novel that both Suga and RM were seen reading in The Soup Season 1. In the story, the
Okay.
protagonist suffers from a condition that stops his amygdala from working well, so his mother feeds him almonds to help him develop the almonds in his brain. In the
Really?
book, however, this doesn't work, and by the looks of it, neither does in the video, because despite of his medications, Jung is still haunted by his past. In the lyrics, he begs to be let out, he wants to be set free from the memories in his amygdala, but in the video we see that every time that he approaches the door closes, trapping him inside of his memory. As the video
Exactly.
progresses, his efforts grow, but his failures grow along with them. At the beginning, the door is just closed, then he approaches it and it gets locked, but the more he gets lost in his own past, the more difficult even reaching the door actually becomes. While Jung is overcome by the images of his accident, his mother on the floor, and the illness of his family, he crawls towards the door, but at that point even the space gets bent. The floor becomes a wall impossible to climb, and Jung lays there as it eventually starts to rain. Now this scene can almost be seen as his lowest point, because that is the moment he gives up. The rain washes over him, he's scarred by his own trauma, he's trapped in his own memory, and nothing seems to work. In the video, however, not everything is lost, because through his memory we finally make an important discovery. As I mentioned before, Jung is constantly reliving his accident, which is an event that by his own admission he couldn't even mention. As he recalls that series of events time and time again, the outcome is always the same.
Yeah.
But the moment he gets at his lowest point, that is, the moment it starts to rain, the same happens in the memory. This is when something strange actually takes place. In a shocking turn of
connection.
events, the Jungi of the past is able to see the Jungi of the present traveling through the memories in order to warn him. This works. Jungi avoids the accident, but when he finally gets to his front door, the door is locked and he cannot get in. Now this is the bottom of the entire situation here. The door that past Jungi is trying to open is the same one the present Jungi cannot open either. If we look at the previous scenes, we discovered that the past was knocking on the door of the amygdala all along, and it's this very interaction that elicits this emotional response. The present Jungi calls out to his past self because saving him would mean saving himself. In turn, the past Jungi comes through because it's a memory encoded in the amygdala, but its presence is the very thing that haunts his present self.
Yep.
By the end, we see that this
Yeah.
struggle has no resolution because Jung is still trapped and it's still raining. Throughout the song, however, there are quite a few hints that imply a more hopeful epilogue, because by the end he not only understands that the past cannot be changed, but also that what didn't kill him actually made him stronger. Even if it's still
Absolutely.
painful to remember the past, Jungi was eventually able to learn from it, so as he slowly lets go of his trauma, it begins to bloom again like a lotus flower. Now him comparing himself to a lotus flower is very significant here, because the lotus flower is a choice with a lot of implications. For one, the lotus is a water flower that rises from the mud and blooms without stains, thus symbolizing a rebirth that is pure despite the dirt it comes from.
Like
It's a
the
flower
rose.
that is known for its resilience and strength.
Cool.
And in many Eastern culture,
Yeah.
it's also
You got
considered
one
an
right
important
there.
symbol of spiritual awakening and enlightenment. Jung seeing himself as a lotus flower implies a change for the better that, yes, might not be portrayed in the video, but is there nonetheless. Since the song focuses on his past trauma, the video shows his experience in dealing with those painful memories, but as I mentioned before, the very fact that this song exists means that he found a way to cope and find comfort. As he said himself, the album is called D-Day because it's a day of liberation. In Haegeum, we saw him getting liberated from unwanted bands and opinions, but in Amygdala we see the initial stage of him getting liberated from the trauma of his past. To know if this is the last we'll see of August D, we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
We
And if you
did.
did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I like bookish theories. This is
I really like
cool.
that.
I love
Very
her style.
cool.
And there's two things I kind of want to talk about right there. They mentioned the D-Day there too, because there's an actual documentary where it kind of shows that he kind of finally gets through the door.
Yeah.
And the D-Day tour, and it's on
Very
Disney
cool.
Plus, and it's something I think we really should check out in
Oh.
our time when we can.
You were talking about that, and I haven't seen it on Disney Plus yet. Even show up on my recommended, so I can't wait
I
to
have
get
at least,
into
so I
it.
know we'll be able to see it. But what was really cool A lot of people tell me, and I think you've heard this, is like live life with no regrets.
Yes.
And I think that's because a lot of people don't want to address their scars. So I
Yeah.
really think it's more on that side where it's like don't like address your amygdala, like don't have any regrets. Everything just happens for a reason, and there is a bit of that because that's what he's saying. Is like there are some
Mhm.
things that were out of my control, but there are some things that were in
Like
my
how
control.
I addressed the situation that was out of my control. And I think
Exactly.
that's a really big thing that we doesn't get talked about enough, where at least here where we live growing up here in North America, often we're told that like your actions were valid regardless.
Yeah.
Because of the situation, your actions were valid regardless. So then if that in that case everyone is right, everyone's actions were right and everything can be justified. But what Suga is saying here is it's not everything is justified, that it's your actions and the incorrect ways of handling situations that are going to cause these scars to happen. And if you can't learn from those incorrect ways of handling situations, then those scars are going to, you're walking into it yourself. That was why it was that self-inflicted, because he's
Absolutely.
trying to pull back, but the scar is happening because it's that self constant battle.
Yep.
So like I think that is a very important message that really needs to be seen on like a more global standpoint, because it is the way we address it that causes our own PTSD and things like that, as we've even talked about in the past.
Totally. I remember when my grandma was going through Alzheimer's and how
Mm-hmm.
difficult that was for people to even go and see her as she was deteriorating in front of our eyes. But
Yeah.
it's a very traumatic type of experience. But if you don't address it and take it for what it is, you won't end up being there for them during their time.
And
So
then you regret it.
and then you definitely regret it, where when you learn about that news you need to be able to take it, address it, and then just be there and show up. And that's half
Mm-hmm.
the time. All you need to do with these trauma things is just still being able to show up, even though it's easier to say because everyone has different forms of trauma. So
Absolutely.
very cool that he has found a way with his music to address, because that's what
Yeah.
Bookish Theories was saying there. If this song came out, that means he was
Able
wanting to
to
address
address
or
it.
able to address. So we're
Absolutely.
at Daechwita now. I must admit, one of my favorite songs we have heard
Yeah.
from BTS and or any of the solo members here. It's a banger.
It really is. We actually listen to this song every morning because Oliver loves it as well. So he's got his arms
He's
up. This is how he dances to it. It's amazing.
Here we go.
Suga has delivered another hard-hitting mixtape titled D2. The first August D album, released in 2016, focused on the tough times Suga faced when he was a teenager. Suga's at a very different place now. He's much older and he's much more successful. And this album focuses on the changes of his feelings after becoming one of music's biggest superstars.
No
It's a
kidding.
very honest album, and my personal favorite off of this is the title track, Daechwita. It's an ultimate flex track slash warning slash reminder with tons of historical references, so let's take a look into it.
Cool. That intro.
Daechwita is Korean traditional marching music that was played when kings or royalty were moving about or important
Very
guests would
cool.
visit, as well as when army would be marching.
Really?
There are two main characters
Oh,
in
that
this
makes
music
sense.
video, a King
Makes
Suga
so much
and a
sense.
bottom class Suga.
Yes.
We can see that the
Yep.
King Suga is a tyrant. He has everyone kneeling down with the faces down in the
Got that
ground.
right.
And he beheads people who have complaints in this scene. You can see the Shinmungo here. People in the Joseon dynasty would hit this drum if they had something that they've been wronged. They'd hit this drum and the king or someone up in the hierarchy would come and sort out their problems.
Oh, wow.
Except here, King Suga is killing the people who have such complaints and issues.
Ooh.
But the bottom class Suga, with the help of BTS and army represented by the 6 other men and a woman in the
Okay.
scene,
Oh, I didn't even
starts
see
a coup.
everyone else
He
in
drives
there.
up a car
It
with
wasn't
the
the
men
actual band.
Yeah,
though.
I know, but like, okay. I thought it was for a second because he said MBTS, and
Yeah,
then
okay. That's why I
it
got
just
you.
kind of went
You got
past
very
really
excited.
quick, and I got really excited there because I know that we have Jungkook who dances, I believe it is, or was it Jungkook who dances in behind him in one of the
He's actually
scenes.
like, I think hits RM even.
Yeah, he's like hitting RM.
Yeah.
So like I got really excited for a second.
Here we
Forgive
go.
me.
And a woman in the scene starts a coup.
Yeah.
He drives up a car with the men representing BTS
Good.
and also a cute painting of Bang PD.
Oh,
By
that's
the way, this painting
that's
has its
so
origins in a Jungkook drawing of Bang PD. It's pretty funny. The King Suga sees this and
So good,
gives a
actually.
thumbs down and captures the
Ooh.
bottom class Suga. The King Suga wants to kill him and
get
does
it.
this graceful sword dance, which apparently Suga learned in 2 days. Meanwhile,
Cool.
bottom class Suga,
Impressive.
blindfolded and tied down, starts headbanging, singing Daechwita.
so dope. Then he's like, nope.
Remember how I told you that Daechwita was played when kings were about,
Yeah.
or when the army would be marching? The bottom class Suga singing this is an announcement that he is actually the real king. He feels like he's the king.
Cool.
The people under the king, the very ones that were kneeling to him
Are now
in the beginning, are
headbanging.
now joining Suga, headbanging with him.
Yeah.
This Daechwita is also for them. These kneeling people are armies marching
Yeah.
together with the bottom class Suga.
Very
At the
cool.
end,
I
the
love this.
executioner who was supposed to take down the bottom class Suga actually frees him and gives him a gun.
Wow.
Bottom class Suga grabs this and shoots the king. I think the MV and the song is a metaphor for BTS and ARMY taking down the existing system and the ruling forces of the industry. The King Suga
You got that
represents
right.
the system, the existing system, the few powerful companies that had control over the industry before BTS came to the scene. Bottom class Suga is Suga himself in a small company with basically nothing, as if he was born into a bottom class, and winning the people over, eventually taking down the king with BTS and armies. I think Suga picked the perfect motif to convey his message. And if
I
you look at
agree,
the
yeah.
historical references, you'll be more amazed at how clever this all is.
This is insane. They're just so multi-layered in their
They are.
artistry. It's like, it's almost like prophet level.
It is. And what's really cool too is like when we first reacted to Daechwita, I really said that wrong. But when we first reacted to it, I took it on a much more personal level of like combating your own, inner self
Your
and
shadow
like
self
the
and
shadow
all that.
self, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see this gentleman's interpretation where it is more of like an industry and less personalized, because like you've said, we tend to really take music more personally because music is a healing thing for us, which
It's both in this though, because who's
is.
with them is BTS and ARMY. That's as personal as it gets.
that is as personal
Because
as it
that's
gets
who
for
is
them.
bringing the king down. So they're
Exactly.
saying this is so personal to me because I think what we represent is the highest of the
I
hierarchy,
agree 100%.
which is like a good pat on your back.
Historical references, you'll be more amazed at how clever this all is. Well, this single verse has a lot to unpack, but let's just start with this line. The Joseon Dynasty, which is most likely where the song is set in, had a strict class system where there was a heavy discrimination based on which class you were born into.
as
Slaves were not even considered human. They would be traded in cases their owners didn't have enough money, and they were thought of
Jeez,
more
look at those
as
shoes.
just things. Think about the mistreatment that BTS received earlier on in their careers. They faced heavy discrimination
did.
due to them being from a small company, and they were mistreated. So it's easy to understand why Suga called himself a slave here. Slaves in Joseon were almost completely blocked off from advancing to higher classes. So for a slave to become a king is basically impossible. But Suga's saying he made it happen. The following line is a reference to Haegeum, the king of Joseon Dynasty in the 17th century.
Okay.
He developed paranoia while in power and notoriously became violent and reckless. Hence the line, Berserk Tiger, Hwanghae flow. But I think there are more reasons Suga referenced Hwanghae in the lyrics, especially if you consider what his life was like. Hwanghae-gun had a very roller coaster of a life. Originally, he was a war hero, defending Joseon against the Japanese invasion of 1592, one of the biggest wars in Korean history.
Wow.
His father, who was then king, had fled when the war broke out, and the 18-year-old Prince Hwanghae led Joseon troops in the battlefield.
Wow.
Rarely at this time did kings or to-be kings go out into the battlefield themselves. So Kwanghae, fighting with the people, won their hearts over, and there were movements to throne him as the king instead of his father.
No kidding.
The father felt threatened by this, so he made a lot of political efforts to stop Kwanghae from gaining influence. Eventually, Kwanghae became stuck between two large political powers, and this struggle eventually made Kwanghae go paranoid and become violent and reckless.
Wow.
Ultimately, he was dethroned after a coup. I think Suga somewhat relates to Kwanghae as he himself had been through a tough adolescence, having to go out into the battlefield at an early age, just like Kwanghae did. He was an idol with no money, from a small company stuck in an industry dominated by big corporations. When Suga started winning battles and gaining power, he must felt a lot of efforts from the existing big powers to keep him away from the throne, like what Kwanghae experienced from his father when the people wanted him to become the king. Suga mentions putting his past in the rice chest. For many Koreans, the word Trilogy or rice chest is strongly connected to the tragic story of Sadoseja, which involves him dying in a rice chest.
Ooh.
Sadoseja was the son of then King Yeongjo, and his father was extremely harsh on him, humiliating him and scolding him in front of others at a very early age. This became so severe that Sadoseja attempted to commit suicide a few times, but even then, he was treated terribly. He developed what modern doctors diagnose as bipolar disorder and began acting very violently. Eventually, the king ended up hating Sadoseja so much that he orders Sadoseja to go into a rice chest. Sadoseja went in, and he was stuck inside for 8 days and eventually starved to death.
Jeez.
Sadoseja had a troubled life, filled with being humiliated and mistreated, and mental health issues just not being understood. Suga has been pretty open about his mental health issues he had when he was growing up, and I think he relates to Sadoseja. He sees himself in him.
I really love this interpretation.
Yeah.
It's like thoroughly incredible. What's so incredible for me about it is he's addressing the class system so much here. We know how much the Korean class system really affects them, and even just the music industry itself, and how much he wanted to be an advocate and a connection for pop music and for hip hop and the underground scene. And that is such a, you need a king to be able to unite different locations together, and he needs someone who's going to be a part of the army while doing it too, because these guys are putting in as much effort as anyone I've ever seen. So it's so incredible to see how much history is being blended into this song, because you can love this song just from listening to it, let alone the artistry and the history that gets blended into it. This is why we love it so much.
100%. And like, I'm really loving like this interpretation of it as well. And coming from, I'm assuming this is a Korean gentleman.
It is, yeah.
Who has so much background knowledge of Korean history that we don't have.
Exactly.
To be able to like even have these amazing references to these war heroes, idols, villains, just human beings from the past who have really shaped the history, and that a lot even Suga is able to relate to, because I know we have our historians who we relate to as well. So it's really cool to actually get this background knowledge, because it's really interesting, and I don't know any of Korea's history, so that would be something to dive into.
Exactly. It's nice to learn more history from around the world.
Absolutely.
He had when he was growing up, and I think he relates to Sadoseja. He sees himself in him. He says he's putting his past in the rice chest.
Good.
It's a declaration that he's putting the old troubled Yoongi, the Sadoseja Yoongi, behind and looking at what's ahead of him.
That's awesome.
In the second verse, Suga focuses more on how he's now on the throne and he's better than everybody else. Suga directly name drops Bang PD and also takes a shot at other artists who do drugs thinking that they write better music while they're high.
Exactly.
I won't name any names here, but I'm sure you can think of an artist, or a few artists for that matter, that will be at the butt end of this. Some in bigger companies, in fact.
Ooh, boy!
The diss aside, this line is also a glimpse into Bang PD's relationship with BTS. In a typical company, it'd be extremely difficult to even mention the name of your boss.
No kidding.
This openly, without putting the honorifics Nim, especially considering how much a veteran and how much older Pang PD is compared to BTS. However, Suga name draws Pang PD as if he was his friend.
Yep.
We can sense that there is a
friends.
very close bond and assume that Pang PD is very democratic with BTS.
Seems
the
like
fact that Suga's talking of Pang PD so casually is a flex of its own to
It
others.
is.
As it's a sign that BTS has become so big and valuable to the company that he's at level with Pang PD.
I'm not gonna kid y'all. This is why I think he's so much like Eminem. Like, you know how much Eminem talks shit to Dr. Dre and
all the
his
time.
like he's literally like in his basement doing things to him. It's hilarious. So like because they're at an equal level in their creative flow.
It's so funny because I didn't even think about that because all the times he drops like these disses and stuff to Dr. Dre, but he's like actually Dr. Dre's sitting beside him recording the
Making
music,
the beat for it.
making the beat for it, right? So it's so funny because you don't think that when you're listening to music, at least for me, I get so caught up in the music that sometimes I forget about the added aspects to it. Like what he's saying, like, hey, there's this honorific, which we don't really have honorifics over here, to show like stature or status.
Sometimes with Mr. or we sometimes say sir.
We used to have it more often when I think we were a lot more traditional within our culture, but we're so much less traditional now that we don't use the honorifics the way that we used to. So it's really cool to get that added value to the content as well.
Extreme added value. I've been loving these.
So big and valuable to the company that he's at level with Pang PD. Now this is an interesting bit.
He's so
Here
good.
Suga uses the Korean word hyunta. Hyunta is an interesting Korean slang that is used all around the internet. Directly translated as wise man's time, it is a word to describe the feeling you get right after you've ejaculated. Yes, ejaculated. And you feel no more sexual urges and you have a moment of clarity in your brain.
You're not
you feel
clarity.
still
Post-nut
present
clarity, man.
and sometimes disappointed that the short moment of satisfaction was all you got and you worked so hard for it. This slang originated from Japan, but it has become a staple in Korean.
I'm going to advocate for myself. I can round 2. I can round 3. You know. That's why we got babies. Here we go. I swim, baby. Here we go.
Everyday language, and it is widely used in everyday life outside of sexual situations. Usually in situations when you finally got what you dearly wanted and you wonder, that was it? Suga's saying he's feeling extreme hyunta because he has it all. He has money, he has clothes, he has everything he ever wanted, and there's nothing, no one above him. While this could be considered a small cry for help, I think within the context of this song, it's more of a hard flex.
It's a hard flex.
He's saying, others can only dream of what I have, but now I got everything and I feel bored and disappointed. But you won't know how I feel because you never had any of this.
I love it!
BTS has been on the top for the past few years, absolutely dominating, with a level of popularity that has never been seen in K-pop before.
Wow, look
They're
at
so
BTS
dominant that
Wow,
sometimes you forget that they too had humble beginnings. In fact, more humble than most top artists out now today. They had to fight their way through discrimination, mistreatment, and humiliation. Daechwita is a reminder that this was where they started, and they took that system down. And it's also a warning that they had the resilience and the force to go through all of this, to go from slave to king.
Yeah.
If you want us to make more videos like this, supporting us on patreon.com/DKDKTV helps us a lot. These explain videos get copyright claimed, thus we make no money off of them, 0 cents. So please consider supporting us on patreon.com/DKDKTV. For just a cup of coffee a month, you can get exclusive content and also help us continue our careers. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was a great
amazing
explanation for that one. Incredible. And like you said, we always take things so personally, so it's kind of nice to get the personal and cultural context of really what he's trying to say, because he's a lot bigger than just the individual. He's always trying to address everything from his past even. So that's so cool, because with Amygdala, it's so much about the past traumatic events and all these things you have to deal with, but then we always forget how much our history and our human history really plays into how we're just feeling as humans as well,
Absolutely.
outside of like our epigenetics, right?
Yeah,
So
because I guess like with your fight or flight and things like that, the amygdala is where your epigenetics would live as well. Like,
100%, that's why you're scared of a snake
yeah,
opposed to an apple.
spiders and snakes and
It's already
things.
in
It's
you,
already
right?
in
It's
you.
built in you. So here we
Human
go.
memory.
It's incredible. It teaches you so much. And now we're at Haegeum. I've really liked your choice on doing it in this order.
Thank you, honey.
So now we're on the finishing part of this part 3, and like DKTV said, we thank you all for the support on Patreon as well. If you are not part of our Patreon community yet and you want to, we have a free trial going right now where you can get early content, you can get stuff that has been blocked, and you also get to participate in polls for what we do moving forward. And we also have a poll that's going to decide what band member to dive into as well. So that's very exciting too. We're now with Haegeum. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Hello and welcome back to Bookish
Love that.
Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about August's Haegeum, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of the lyrics and the music video to see what they can tell us about the concept and story of this official solo debut. Haegeum is a song written and composed by Yoongi himself, and its title is a wordplay that actually refers to two different things. On one hand, the Haegeum is a traditional string instrument whose sound can be heard throughout the song itself. On the other, however, Haegeum can also be translated as the lifting of a ban, thus implying that this is a track that uses music to encourage people to free themselves and go against certain rules. As the chorus tells us, this song is a Haegeum. It's a call to lift a ban that we as the audience are meant to join, as Augusti introduces us to this new type of rebellion. According to the press release, the song pushes an idea of freedom to people who appear to be free, but are actually bound by suffocating social standards that restrict them. Much like the album as a whole, this is a concept that was inspired by Jungi's perspective, and more specifically by his life as an idol, as well as his experience with social media. As he explained in the Road to D-Day documentary, for instance, one of the main inspirations behind the song is the restrictions that idols have to endure for no reason. Even if on a general level, idols don't commit any crimes or do anything that controversial, people hold them at such an impossible standard that even the smallest thing can become the biggest scandal. As we see in a second, for instance, the video includes multiple scenes of Augusti smoking cigarettes, and this is one of those actions that are only considered scandalous if it's an idol doing it. If you saw any other adult smoking a cigarette down the street, you probably wouldn't even notice it.
See,
but if an adult...
And that's the thing, like, we're literally called EnterTheCronic, y'all, so I'm just gonna be straight up, like, chronic is weed.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be straight up. We have vapes right down here, and we're always so worried about what people think about us, to be honest.
Yeah, we are, all
But
the time.
to be real, like, a lot of the times, we smoke. So, like, I really like what they're showing here with Suga, because with him smoking the cigarette, even for us, like, we don't smoke cigarettes. We even kind of think it's a bit more taboo anymore, fair enough. But, like, there's a bit of it where it is a little shocking to see him doing it. We weren't expecting that, even when we found out Jimin was drinking at times too. We were always like, okay, cool. Like, we didn't think these people were doing it.
And it's like that standard, and it's so crazy how even us who like we even got caught up in that almost perfection standard. Even right off the bat, I thought Suga was short for sugar or something sweet, not realizing this trilogy would literally be entirely of him taking heads and taking over and bringing down a system, which is definitely not sugar and not sweet. It's rebellion,
it's
right?
Rebellion, yeah.
So there's
in the correct way.
In all the correct ways. So we even got caught up in like those misconceptions of the members of BTS and like what they were pushing through even with their music. So, or at least I did. And so it's really cool now to like even see, because like I'm going to be honest, when I saw Suga smoking in the music video, I didn't think twice about it.
Awesome then.
Right? So that's something for me. I didn't even think about it because I'm so used to seeing smoking in movies, TV shows, things like that. I myself started smoking when I was 12 years old and didn't quit till I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's, for me, it's just such a normal part of life. The only thing for me is I was like, oh, look, he's having a cigarette. I want one. I'm like, damn it. You know? So like it's one of those things.
Nice. Sounds good.
Any other adult smoking a cigarette down the street, you probably wouldn't even notice it, but if an adult idol is caught doing it, then people start talking and questioning his character. In a sense, Jungi decided to include those scenes as some sort of test, because if a 30-year-old smoking a cigarette becomes a controversy, then one has to wonder where we should accept this insane standard to begin with. Following these thoughts, Agust created Haegeum to start questioning these useless restrictions and lift those bans that exist for no reason. This is a song about freedom of expression. It has the goal to liberate what is forbidden, but make no mistake, the message of Haegeum is not that we are free to do and say whatever we want.
Not
As he explains in the song, given interpretation is free, and there is a big difference between freedom and self-indulgence. If your beliefs are reflected in your thoughts and judgment, and you think that your freedom is equal to the freedom of others, then this song is for you. You understand that people should be treated equally, and that if you can do certain things, then others can as well. If in contrast you think that your freedom of expression is more important than others, then it becomes self-indulgence, and it can become the cause of someone's death. At that point, we can no longer talk about freedom of expression, because your actions limits the freedom of somebody else. This is a discourse that is painfully relevant when it comes to idols, and in more ways than one, this concept applies to all of us just as well. As he explained in the documentary, Haegeum was also inspired by his experience with social media. In this day and age, we have access to a world of information on the palm of our hands, but oftentimes we use this tool to kind of restrict each other without even realizing it. Jungi explained that there were times where he felt like his life was kind of limited by events happening on the other side of the world, but then he realized that he didn't have to walk on eggshells that much. People can live like they want, and Haegeum is a song that is meant to remind us of this simple truth. In the second verse, for instance, Agust
you're really not as important as you think.
No, you're not.
And that is really freeing, but that doesn't mean now with some of that freedom you then just start getting in each other's way and
then
all
you
that
self-indulge,
too.
and then there's so much self-indulgence, and I love that he brought up social media, because like even if you're looking at like the day-to-day life, I like what you said, we're really not as important as we think we are, because everyone is the main character in their own story and their own world. Right? So like I'm going to be the main character in my world, Kyle's the main character in his world, but to each of us we're also main characters or side characters with each other. But our neighbors, we're not connected with our neighbors
as much as we would love to.
As much as we would love to, but our other neighbor, we're not connected at all, right? So like those lives become so disconnected, and I think that is in of itself a little bit of a self-indulgence as well.
No kidding.
Right?
You're being comforted by just being
in your own main
bubble.
character, your own bubble. And so like I like what he was saying, where it's like, if you want to have your freedom, then don't take someone else's freedom that is equal to your freedom away.
Yes.
Because then that is just self-indulgence, because it's not even about the physicality of the self-indulgence. It's also going to be in the emotional aspect of the self-indulgence.
I don't want to be a stay-at-home dad and work from home so that I can just game.
Yeah.
That would feel really bad and not go very well.
Exactly.
Hopefully I'm going to be hands-on with the kids and do some amazing things, and then also be that man that is in front of a lot of women, because I'm traditionally doing something that's not, I'm not doing something as traditional, because if I'm the one bringing the kid to the parks and the swimming pools and it's usually mothers there, even that feeling is something you need to break. Because they're like, why are you bringing it? It's like, what do you mean? What's that wrong?
Exactly. You had that experience with swimming lessons with our with Oliver, was you were the only dad at the swimming lessons, and it was a little awkward.
It was a little awkward, but then also was happy for them, because then all the kids were like, oh, this is a new experience, we got a daddy figure. There's
a daddy here.
He's gonna throw me up and catch me now.
Exactly. So it's really cool to see how those experiences change when you are able to indulge yourself and have that freedom without it being a freedom of self-indulgence.
Yes.
Still criticizes social media and the negative impact it has on our lives. The endless influx of information that we are subjected to prohibits freedom of imagination and seeks conformity of thought. What is criticizing here is the mob mentality that people tend to acquire on social media. When somebody kind of gets engulfed by that tide, one gets blinded by the noise. The mob silences freedom of thought and feeds on unnecessary controversy, but when we are in the middle of it, we don't get it, because all that chaos confuses our judgment. We don't understand that we are the ones to blame, that we are the ones restricting ourselves. So without even realizing it, we become slaves to the very system that we criticize. We become slaves to capitalism, to money, to hatred, to prejudice, to YouTube, to flexing, and none of us are immune until we actually take a step back. The moment we close our eyes, everything becomes clear. We realize that everyone was blinded by envy and jealousy, and that we were putting shackles on each other for no reason. In the song, Agust invites us to follow the Haegeum to escape this flood of information, because by doing so we can learn to differentiate between freedom and self-indulgence. Now in the video, this concept is explored with a cinematic story that heavily parallels the events that took place in Daechwita. If back then Augusti played the double role of the king and the boss confronting each other, this time around Yoongi plays the role of a detective and a thief fighting to the death for supremacy. Now that these two stories have something in common, it's very easy to see, because even at first glance we can notice some callbacks that reference the first video.
Yeah, I love
For
that.
one, the jacket of the thief bears the same dragon symbol of the king. His gang is made up of 6 men, like the gang of the boss, and 3 out of 4 characters played by Yoongi have a scar on their eye. As he explained himself, the reason behind this scar will be revealed in Amygdala, so we'll talk more about that in that video, but in the meantime, let's focus more on the story because we have quite a lot to unpack. You see, despite the shallow references that I just mentioned, Haegeum and Daechwita have a lot more in common than what it seems, to the point that I would even go as far as to say that they're almost the same story but shot in different settings. In Daechwita, for instance, the boss is a man of the people who stands up to a tyrant who beheads anybody who dares to question him. As the boss challenges his power, the king takes him prisoner, but on the night of his execution, the man who was supposed to kill him frees him instead. The executioner was one of the butchers that the boss acknowledged at the very beginning, so it was his ally all along. He betrayed the king for him, and at the end he gives him the gun that the boss finally uses to shoot the tyrant. Now, keep this summary in mind when we break down what happens in Haegeum. At the beginning, the video opens with Augusti as the boss of a gang followed by 6 men. He enters a restaurant that acts as a front of illegal activities, and after stealing a pair of chopsticks, he goes upstairs to confront a rival gang. Now, as we see later on in the video, his goal is to steal these people's money, and in order to accomplish this task, he doesn't hesitate to massacre every man that comes in his way. When the thief stabs the guards with the chopsticks, the 2 gangs start fighting each other as Augusti steals the money. The only survivor of this massacre is this man right here, who in turn calls his boss to tell him what's going on. This is where the antagonist comes into play, which is none other than Augusti the detective. You see, even if he works for the police, he's a corrupt detective who is actually the leader of the gang the other Yoongi just stole from, so as he said,
politically correct gang.
Politically correct.
The police. Hey, you're saying things that are causing some people to think.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
sends a car on the scene, he sets off on his personal journey to find his nemesis. In the meantime, however, his nemesis is having the time of his life. Back in his hideout, he has a smoke, he does a little dancey dance, plays with his goldfish, and then he even goes out to get some tangerines, which I would argue are an essential detail in Yoongi's lore. When he comes back, however, the detective is there waiting for him, so as Yoongi the thief lays in a bathtub filled with money, Yoongi the cop is pointing a gun at him ready to shoot. This, however, doesn't seem to affect him, so much so that he removes the cigarette from the cop's lips and uses it to set on fire the money that he stole from him. This is proof that Yoongi the thief never really cared about his money, he just wanted to disrespect him, and
it's
this
like
is
the
what
Joker
sends
here.
the detective off the edge. After getting waterboarded, the thief is standing in front of the detective about to be executed. Just like in Daechwita, however, there is a final twist, because the boss takes a gun out of the barrel and shoots the detective, killing him instead. If you look closely, before approaching the body of his enemy, the thief gives the weapon to the man who was about to execute him, and this man happens to be the same guy that called the detective at the very beginning. As Yoongi was leaving the premises, he saw him on the phone. They looked at each other, and he chose to keep him alive despite killing everybody else, so this implies that just like in Daechwita, all the events were part of an intricate plan to kill the corrupted leader. In both cases, the bosses allowed themselves to get captured. Both tyrants thought they won, and as they were about to execute the men who challenged their power, they were betrayed by one of their own before getting shot by their own enemy. If in Daechwita we never got to see the outcome, however, However, in Haegeum we do, because at the end it's implied that Yoongi the thief replaces the detective as the leader of his gang. Not only the police car drives him back to the restaurant from the beginning, but the waiter saves him right away like he's the new boss, thus implying that the cycle of power and greed eventually continues on. Before ending this video, I would also like to point out that Haegeum can also have a symbolical interpretation that fits the lyrics of the song. As we discussed before, Haegeum is about Yoongi rebelling against the useless restrictions that people give others for no reason other than to control them. If we apply this concept to the characters in our story, the events that take place in the video can also have a very different meaning. Let's say, for instance, the Yoongi the thief is the one calling the Haegeum. He wants to rebel, lift the ban, and do whatever he wants without getting judged. As he does so, however, he's also challenging the authority of the detective, who in turn kinda represents the people the Yoongi is criticizing. As an antagonist, the cop is a very hypocritical character if you think about it. He embodies the law, but at the same time he's the most corrupted of them all, because he's also the leader of a gang. Like the people on social media who police idols but do the same stuff they want to cancel them for, the detectives want to punish the thief for things that he's guilty of as well. The thief's
And we literally were a minute left here. I was dealing with this with the solo stands.
Yes, you were.
And we made a community post kind of addressing it, saying like, have I been this like not seeing what's going on here? And you can become your own worst enemy by admitting even that and giving them a voice and all that too. So it was really cool for me because I actually had doubt. I'm not perfect. I actually need help. So I'm actually asking you guys for your opinions and stuff. And it was really cool to see the sides that started appearing from just the dissecting the topic itself here, and how much these groups really can control something and they become the most corrupted versions of the thing they say they want to stop too. So it's interesting when it's usually the people that are trying to control the much are usually the biggest hypocrites.
Absolutely, I'd agree.
Smokes, but so does the cop. He steals, but so does the cop. He kills, but so does the cop. The only difference here is that the cop has the audacity to go after him for it, which is very similar to those people judging others for anything they do. As Yoongi evokes the Haegeum, he draws first blood by killing with red chopsticks, which in turn is the same tool that he uses to eat right at the end. This symbolically means that the weapon that he uses to kill is the same that he uses to feed himself, which is none other than his music. In real life, Augusti doesn't need violence to prove his point. No. He uses his craft, and Haegeum is yet another example of him successfully doing so. To see what else D-Day has in store for us, we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about liking and subscribing. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
She's great.
She's so great. And thank you all for getting through with us with this trilogy. It was incredible. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like I know it more. I feel like I know Suga more. I feel like I somehow even know BTS more. I know ARMY more. That's how much Suga means to the whole thing itself. It was really cool just to learn some of the mental things, hardships that he's gone through, but just like how to be mentally to get through some of your hardships itself. And how to address it. And this really was amazing, wasn't it?
It was amazing. And the thing that I really liked about this is, so like we listened to Amygdala first because it was really talking about like memories and you guys let us know that it was a prequel for this
that's specifically
three-piece. That's specifically why, is because you guys let us know it was a prequel, and I wanted to see the prequel first. But after watching these videos explaining like what every song means, Amygdala really does actually fit in the last spot.
Of course it does.
Because like but so it doesn't feel necessarily like a prequel. It feels more like an epilogue. An epilogue of this amazing piece. It's because like the first two are retold stories, so they could go in any order, first or second, because it's a retelling of a story.
Possibly,
but at least from these interpretations that we've just listened to. But Amygdala really is the one that brings it all together, that really makes it personal, really brings in, like what you were saying, human memory versus just like individual memory of all the things and all the times where there is a incident that you need to make sure that you learn from, so you don't walk into your own scar. So I really like that interpretation of the scar, of it being
self-inflicting
the self-inflicted based on decisions that you've made or not learning from the choice that you had the first time. We have a saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
Yes.
And that's very, very much what the scar is representing here, because the very first time one of these situations takes place, you can get away with it without being scarred, but the second time, if you haven't learned from it, then that scar is your own doing.
Wow, well said.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I took from this. That's why I feel like those two could be intertwined either way, but Amygdala really is that epilogue versus a prequel that brings it all together.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed checking it this way as well, because either way, I think you're going to get the story out of it too. What did you think about the one character not having the scar at the end with the chopsticks? Because the four characters, he was the only one who didn't.
I think that was him. Now that he's sitting there as the new boss, I think that's going to be where he gets his scar from not learning from the actions that he just committed.
Or do you think he's not affected by the scars anymore?
If he wasn't affected by the scars anymore, he would still have a scar, but it would be like almost healed, I think.
Fair enough.
Because then he would have had to have the scar in the first place to not be affected by the scars. So I think he's like a young guy who's gotten himself into a pretty rough situation. He's become a thief. He's having to do what he has to do. He's got his reasons for having to do what he has to do.
Yeah, as they all do,
So
right?
like you said, the first time he gets through this fool, he hasn't been scarred yet. So maybe he's been learning from his mistakes up until this point, which is why he's been able to get up to this point. But now that he's at the top and he's taking down this corrupt cop, but now that cycle is going to repeat itself, he's not going to learn from that, and that's where he's going to get his scar from. That's what I think is going to happen, at least.
Let us know then. That was at least what I was trying to think, and I hope you guys had a good time as well. We are now exiting the rabbit hole, folks. Thank you so much for spending time, and again, we have a Patreon if you want to have any early content and you want to support us. It's just like DKTV said, we don't really make any money on these videos, so it's a really nice, easy way to support us and the family. And stay tuned for marriage pictures. Can't wait, honey. We are now exiting the rabbit hole.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to show you guys everything that goes on at our wedding. I have put so much work. We both have put so much work into this wedding, and I can't wait for you guys to see it all after I officially become a Percival. So peace and love, everyone, and thank you for being here with us.
God bless y'all.
Take care, and bye for now.